Hey everyone, I'm Mike Henry, and this is my Procreate demo for the piece I call the Falcon. Alright, so we got a pretty quick one here. I did this a while ago. I'm still playing catch up, but you know, that's going slow because life keeps catching up with me, I guess. But here we go. This is just something I did for fun. Like a lot of the pieces that you see me do on this channel, there isn't really an express purpose around the original exploration phase that happens, which is what you're seeing right here. This was drawn with the fat pencil that's in my brush set, so if you go down into the description of this video, there should be a link to my brush set. You just download it from Google Drive, pretty simple. Though I will say, I might have modified it. One thing that you need to get used to in digital art is like just figuring out how to modify brushes to your liking, because even though something might be really cool, there could be something that you wanted to do that's different than what it was originally intended. That's like tinkering with brushes like that is how you also learn how to make your own brushes. Brushes online, it's really easy and cheap usually to go out there and get a bunch of like really cool brushes that'll do what you want. But if you can make them yourself, you might be able to do that like a little bit quicker instead of having to peruse a bunch of brushes. You might save yourself some cash, or again, like I said before, you might just get one that's really good, but then you want to do something a little bit different and you got to go in there and modify it. So learning how to modify Procreate brushes, Photoshop brushes, that'll get you a long way in getting your brushes exactly to where you need them to be. So for this piece here though, like I said, it's all just with my fat pencil. I probably made it a little bit fatter and a little bit sort of like less tapery for the rough. And then when I get into this part, you can see it's got quite a bit of taper. In this piece particularly, I'm trying to really lean into line weight, and not just line weight that I build up, line weight that's just part of the stroke. There's of course lines here that are built up, but there's a lot of them here are just kind of like drawn in one go, which you can kind of see that in the time lapse. You'll see which ones are built up and which ones are one-offs. Now, since this was drawn in Procreate, this is on an iPad with an Apple Pencil. I do not modify any of the pressure curves for the Apple Pencil. I might adjust some sort of a curve or a parameter in the individual brushes, but everything else that I use is stock. If you followed my channel for a long time, you'll know that I prefer to largely use stock things, stock programs, stock tools, because then that just keeps me from getting too specific of a preference on something to where I rely on it a little bit too much. There are some things though that I do really like that I might carry from place to place or program to program. So clearly this is inspired by the 80s. This is a pretty amazing mullet this guy's got here. What you'll see in the actual line art though is I'm leaning into shadow and I'm leaning into form with the way that I'm applying my line. You can see that most of the time, if I'm maintaining consistency, where you would get kind of that ambient occlusion and that like sort of grouping that would create like a heavy shadow, or maybe I'm using the line art to do like a distant shadow, like you can see those back strands in the bottom, in the party portion of his mullet. That's what I'm leaning into here. That's kind of like my thought process, is these will represent shadows largely. Lines kind of represent shadows anyways, but lines are also just like more, they have more diverse applications than just that, but that's kind of the concept behind them, which is why a lot of the time when you transition to more line driven art to something that's more painterly, you might like find that you struggle with trying to get some of that in there. And the opposite can be true as well. If you learn one way of making anything, you're going to come to rely on those aspects, and then when you switch to something else, it's going to feel kind of alien. That's why in my art, the art that you see in my portfolio, there's probably like a bit of a common vibe across all of them, but I try to do some stuff that's line driven, some stuff that's painterly, some stuff that's this, that. Maybe I make it look like it's paper cutout. Maybe I do a different type of line application. And part of that is because I work in the video game industry, and as a concept artist, if you can do one thing extremely well, you can definitely get work. But then if you can do one thing extremely well and flex for different projects, maybe hit different looks and feels, try different methodologies, you can be pretty employable. So that's something that I've just worked on throughout my whole career. There's projects I've worked on that people probably don't even know that I've worked on because I've assumed that style. So that's kind of why you'll see a piece like this pop up, because I'm just sitting around going, you know what I haven't done in a while? Something that's like really heavy line drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and mess around with that. I get a lot of people messaging me on Instagram about how to be employable and how to get your portfolio out there and how to kind of set yourself apart or get noticed or what's the right thing I should have and all that kind of stuff. If you're interested in something like that, I could do a video on that topic. Please let me know in the comments if that interests people. I don't know, especially since I don't keep up with this channel as much as I used to, what people are really like wanting to see versus not. But something that I find is becoming less common is career advice and kind of like how to get the gig versus a lot of tutorial stuff. So I thought maybe that would be interesting, but I don't want to make that unless people are interested. So if you want to see something like that, let me know. So because the lines take a front seat in this illustration, I wanted the shading to take a back seat, which is why we've got some shading here that's really soft. It's kind of trying to hit those softer, rounded, dimensional forms of the object, whereas we're relying on the lines for more of that precision and that heavy shadow. That's kind of the goal of this. So that's why you're not seeing too many shadows here that are like a hard cut, aside from like the cast shadow of his sunglasses. And then we're getting a little bit of a darkening on his front side because we've got all that lightning coming off him in the back. I just wanted to have this like supremely confident mullet donning person here. So that was kind of the whole inspiration. We got a little bit of a rim light on that other side, a little bounce light just to round out those shapes a little bit on the shadow side. But that's it. This is a really quick one, like I said. This was just a fun one. I didn't go into a lot of the details because it kind of builds off of a lot of past videos. If you do have a question for me, go ahead and leave it down below. I usually try to get to everyone unless it's been a long time since the video comes out. I tend to ignore some of the older ones, but go ahead and throw a comment down there and I'll see, or a question, and I'll see if I can get back to you. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.